Millionaires, billionaires, billionaires, millionaires, billionaires, millionaires, and billionaires.
You used to hear a lot about millionaires from old Bernie Sanders until it turned out that he was one. And then, from that point onwards, it wasn't millionaires and billionaires.
So, yeah. It's one of these hypocrisy videos. Oh, no. Right? And what I find funny is the net worth approaching $2 million, right? That's the millionaire status of Bernie Sanders. And it's, yeah, technically he is there one, but technically when we get to retirement age, we should all be millionaires if we actually want to retire, right? You know, it's what is it? Maddie probably knows this a little better as an accountant, but what is it, like 2-3 million you want banked up before you retire, so that you can actually retire. So at Bernie's age, most of the retired people that do that stuff that aren't just so even if you're like someone like me who middle class kind of person and stuff, if I get to retirement age here in 35 years, well, a little less than that, but if I retire by 65, I should have a couple million in the bank, right? Or a couple million net worth and stuff. So it's really minuscule at this. Like, I don't know what made me look it up, one thing or another, but I was on a little David Johansen kick and found out that he's worth about $2 million. So this is about the same level of net worth that Sanders is at. And like, oh, evil millionaires and stuff there. This isn't the type of person Sanders was talking about when he was complaining about the millionaires, right? So we'll go on, because and in most of this, what racks up his net worth is that he owns, like he with what he did with his the money he made off his books and stuff. He owns outright, I think, all 3 of the homes that he owns, right? So that's where most of his net worth comes from, is that, and then there's the his retirement pension from public office is factored in there. But yeah, so he owns, you know, a little over $1 million worth of property that he owns outright that are paid off, right? So that's where much of his net worth comes from, is those. Yeah. Carl's really gone up his ass. He actually did very much a video on here where he interviews somebody. He very much does the PragerU reason is bad, man. Like the guy who for his career is talking about being reason, logic, all that other stuff. He comes in and stuff. Yeah, it's mostly assets, right? So there's 2 years, 2016, 2017 with his books where 2016 I think he just missed $1 million earned in a year, and then 2017 was just above it, and like 75%, like over 800,000 each year was from his 2 books, right? And so that's when he jumped over. But yeah, we'll get into more stuff here coming on. Let me change the stream title really quick. Sargon. This will get the wrong people in here. That'll get the wrong people in here. So anyways, we'll jump back in here.
Well, it was just the billionaires, wasn't it?
What would define your campaign?
Standing up to the billionaire class.
Billionaires, 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 billionaires.
I am not a billionaire.
But that's okay. It's not weird for someone who, I don't know, defends the Soviet Union, Cuba, South American socialist regimes, and just promotes socialism himself on a daily basis as part of the...
I mean, he doesn't defend those regimes. There's things in those... things and policies that he'll back and he'll support and say were good things, or good things that they accomplish under those systems. So he's not defending them from, like all the authoritarian atrocities and stuff. So it's a really weird thing to pin on him. Like the Cuba stuff, I mean, it's really it's weird, right? That everybody's jumping on it here now. Like, I expect the right wingers like Carl and Shapiro to jump on it, but the Democrats and stuff to jump on the same exact things that Obama was saying, as president. The same things Sanders has praised about Cuba are the same things Obama has. And Obama's not a socialist. He's not a communist as much as the right-wingers like to think they are. They're just not.
Core part of his political movement to be an arch-capitalist who's worth millions of dollars and has 3 houses.
I mean, this isn't arch-capitalism, Sargon, right? This isn't, this would be more of, in socialist theory, he'd be more of the petty bourgeoisie and not the bourgeoisie itself, even at this thing. Like I said, if we want to retire, like, Carl, at your age, you're, 40, 41 now, I think? Something around there. Or at least close to 40, if he's not there. But if you wanted to retire, I don't know what, in the U.S., say you're in the U.S., I don't know about the U.K. or what level you'd have to be to retire in the U.K., different social programs and stuff. You would have to have, about $2 million, $3 million in the bank. So you would be a millionaire at 65, right? And like I said earlier, these are not the people that Bernie is going after, right? Oh yeah, the Florida stuff is used pretty hard, and that's going to hurt him over there in Florida. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird thing to get on. Like, and then there's the like the Sandinistas and stuff like that, and all the other things. But what are you gonna do? I mean, Bernie's a leftist, he's a socialist, and so these movements that at least try to adhere and enact these goals and these policies that he's going to support to an extent when they do good, and then when they do bad, he's not. And he's come out and condemned a lot of the atrocities.
Watching him try to berate Mike Bloomberg at the Nevada debate, saying, "Oh, I have 3 houses here, here, and here. Where's your house or houses?" And he's just like, New York. It's just like,
yeah, but so that was not a good line of attack, and Bloomberg kind of played it well. I'll say Bloomberg played that line well in going after Sanders, but it leaves out that Bloomberg has mansions all over the world, right? Far more than what Sanders has. Like, I know there's one in London. I think there's one somewhere in the Caribbean, if I remember correctly. But there's others he has literally all over the world. And these are like the big mansions and stuff.
like, what are you doing? The rest of us have 1 house if we're lucky. Why are you arguing about the number of houses you have on the Democratic stage, you bunch of millionaires and billionaires? Bernie.
So, I don't know. This is weird. Like, so, even if he wasn't a millionaire in net worth and stuff and assets and all stuff paid off, at his salary, $174,000 a year, it's not, it's actually quite easy to have multiple homes. Even if you're mortgaged, like, even at something that what I make and where I live, some of the guys I work with that make about $70,000 a year in there have cabins up the north, so a second residence. Now, they're not as luxurious as Sanders' lake house, obviously, but it's not hard to get that second residence and stuff as you're going there, right? So they have the cabins up there where they go hunting. Some of them are a little more ramshackle than others, and others actually have a cabin similar to Sanders, but not nearly as what Sanders is. 'Cause Sanders is like, over $500,000, right? So that's a regular home, but it's not hard to get it. It's not, there might be a time here in a couple of years that it's very possible I could have a couple residences, right, on just what I make. So it's not necessarily the hardest to do it. It's just where you do, like, if you ever watch like the DIY stuff, you have the income properties and stuff. So some people invest in like a vacation home, and then when they're not vacationing, they rent it out, and it makes them some money, right? So I'm about not quite to the level where I could do that, but as a single guy, if I was married and had kids and stuff, probably couldn't do it. But as somebody who's single, I'm getting close to that range where maybe in a couple of years I could do it. But but I mean, it's not that difficult for the some people in just the middle class that have the multiple properties and stuff.
Sanders has also been a long-standing proponent of a $15 minimum wage. I mean, as he said,
well, if I start advocating the guillotine for landlords, I'm advocating the guillotine of myself, right? So part of my plan with moving is probably get roommates and rent them out to that, because there's some places where I can get 4-bedroom house for even a 4-bedroom townhouse with decent square footage and access to amenities and stuff that is pretty affordable, at least compared to where I'm living now. Where I'm living now is not that affordable for me. Yeah. No, and it's not, I probably could do it now if I didn't try to start my own business and have that fail, right? So I'm a failed entrepreneur as well. I gambled a little bit in there. I'm still paying off the debts on, and so that's what kind of prevents me, and why I say a couple of years before I could get into the range to buy that vacation house and then rent it out when I'm not there. Hey, I'm pro-capitalism, right? I'm still a capitalist and stuff there, even though I'm very much social democrat and all that other stuff. So
it would give more than 40 million low-wage workers a raise, more than 25% of the US workforce. But that, of course, is socialism for thee and not for me, because Bernie Sanders' campaign staff are being paid $15.
All right, so we're back to this. I did a video on this, responding to no bullshit, back when this thing was blowing up last year. And what I explained is it's not the case, right? So Sanders has, on his campaign staff, he has 2 types of workers. So there's the his regular hourly wage workers have always gotten, even at the time of this year, have gotten $15 an hour, right? That worked hourly. The ones that this one comes through here are the organizers, right? So they're salaried and under, I'm going to forget the acronym for the labor board, but whatever the acronym is for the labor board, labor department and stuff. All right, have a good night, Alhana. Thanks for stopping by. But the labor board, they have an exemption to overtime and stuff for certain salaried employees, excuse me. And so these field staffers, as has long been held up in the courts, are exempt. What is it? The FLSA exempt, Fair Labor Standards Act. So they're exempt from overtime. And so what was being argued here was they were working. So they negotiated a salary that, if you took by an hour over a 40-hour work week, paid them about $17 and change. $17 and change for an hour. But what ended up happening is they were working 60 hours a week, and they were salaried, and so they weren't being paid overtime for that salaried work. And so when you take the 60 hours, it ended up being about like $13 an hour instead of $15. So this is at the heart of this controversy. It's a big nothing burger, really. Because literally, I think 2-3 days after all this stuff came out, they were in the process of already negotiating with the unions, right? To up the pay, to guarantee a certain set number of hours, more than 40, that they would work. And so literally like 2 days after this came out, they had finally settled on something. And the union had already rejected one of Sanders' proposals, right? One of the Sanders camp's proposals for the wage increase. So the proposal they offered would have meant they worked an extra day worth of hours, so 48, 50 hours, and they would up their salary like $6,000, $7,000. And so it'd come out to about $16 an hour, $16 an hour, right around there. But the union didn't want it because it was just the pay raise and those set hours in there, and it did nothing to change the original structure of the agreement. And the original structure of the agreement, if you were under a certain wage salary, which would have been the lowest level organizers, you got 100% of your medical premiums paid for. And so this raise would have brought them above that line, which meant they would have to pay, 15% of their premiums instead of nothing on their medical premiums. And so they didn't want to give that up. And I don't remember all the details of everything that was agreed. It was like 50 hours, something like that, and it was that $7,000. So I imagine what they settled on is that they raised the limit on what it was to pay 100% of your medical premiums, right? And I think that was the sticking point that they fixed. Literally a couple days after this story came out. Big nothing burger. Just kind of one of those things there that they want to exploit as like hypocrisy, and it wasn't. Yeah, it's weird. I'm, big Bernie supporter, but yeah, a lot of the people that follow him are really conspiracy theory minded and stuff, and it gets annoying after a while, right?
As now, or weren't at the time anyway, and yet another hypocrisy was revealed. Just peel away the layers, and you find the Democratic Socialist practicing something other than that which they are preaching, which makes you wonder, why don't they preach what they practice?
I mean, Sanders' campaign is as far as I know, maybe Warren has a union now, but at the time of this, Sanders' campaign was the only unionized campaign, right? And it was something he supported, he backed. Like I said, they were in the middle of negotiations when this came out to fix the things that were going on, right? So it's not a hypocrisy, not practicing what you preach, right? It's just kind of some of the things that go on. So, yeah.
That's surely what's effective and what works, and most importantly, what the people involved found fair. Otherwise they wouldn't do it, would they? But then you get...
I mean, they're part of a union, so when they thought working all those extra hours with no overtime because Fair Labor Standard Act exempts them, right? They thought, oh, that's not fair. We should get paid more. We should renegotiate. And so they came to the table and they renegotiated to something where now they're making over that $15 an hour, right? And something like 16 or so, right? So it was fixed right then and there. And it's just a lot of goofy math that you use to argue against it.
Get the Democratic Socialists of America. You know what? We are against for-profit charter schools. It's just people over profit. For-profit charter schools are something that is exclusionary. They make them exclusive to certain people, and not everyone can get in, not everyone can get this first-rate education, and therefore we should abolish them. Unless, of course, you're Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in which case you'll do everything you can to get your goddaughter into the Bronx school.
So, as far as I'm aware, and this is something Bloomberg claimed on stage, is that charter schools are part of the public school system here, and they're not quite the same as a lot of charter schools there. So this is a little different stuff here. I'd have to look more into the story, but based on what I understand about the New York charter schools is that they're actually a percentage of the actual public school education. Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad about Warren. I thought she would have done better, but man, she did not do very well with it. I would have been happy with her as a presidential candidate, right? If Bernie didn't win and she did.
Cool. That's weird though, isn't it? It's like a Bronx charter school. Why don't you get your daughter in? But this is the same as what happened in Britain with the Labour Party. Labour wanted to ban private schools in Britain, and that essentially targeting Eton. But also, there are private schools all over the country. You just have a handful that are famous political private schools, effectively, where they're trained to be politicians. And this was something that the Labour Party was just like, right, we're just going to get rid of them altogether. It's totally belligerent, and of course totally hypocritical, because Diane Abbott sent her son to a private school, so it was good enough for Diane.
So I have no idea about Abbott's positions. It's too bad that Alhana left, because if Abbott could have been one that didn't support the ban on private schools, right? So it wouldn't be an hypocrisy, right? So just because the party as a whole might have been antagonistic towards charter schools, private schools, doesn't mean that Abbott necessarily was. But I don't know her political positions. But yeah, it's a weird, very fallacious of Carl to make that distinction, if Abbott doesn't actually hold the positions he's claiming, or he's claiming that she does. Yeah, Abbott was Costello's partner. some misogyny at play when it comes to work? Yeah, I think so. There was people on Twitter that when she went hard after Bloomberg, kind of didn't like her, which is weird. Honestly, I think that was her best performance going after Bloomberg in the Nevada debates, and all that other stuff. A little feisty, little energy and stuff, fire in her belly. And it's that's what I kind of I always took with like her consumer what's the Consumer Protection Agency, and have I got the right agency that she helped institute? But yeah, that was the kind of fire that drew me to her when that happened. But you got that stuff going in, so nice to see it on stage. So I was fine with it. I'm all for that stuff. But yeah, there's people that don't. You know, they get all snippy and full of fire, and it's that's bad there. And then you get the other way where you can't do there, and there's a lane that she's got to try to a needle she's got to try to thread. Yeah. So yeah, her performance in the South Carolina debate against Bloomberg fell flat for me. It felt very much like the Bernie's "I wrote the damn bill" thing that he tried to play again in a second debate. Yeah, the Federal Consumer Protection Agency. Yep. So. Yeah, so like she was firing stuff in there, and so that was something I supported and kind of drew me to her as a politician I liked. But yeah. So yeah, so there's a needle they got to women got a thread to get through there and stuff, and you know it's unfair. It certainly doesn't bother me. It's not so, but I mean, yeah.
Abbott, the shadow Home Secretary, I believe is until I think she's stepping down soon. But this is the point. It's just layer of hypocrisy upon hypocrisy.
But I mean, and I would say here and add to an hypocrisy. So say if she was against these kind of private schools and how they're run, there might be a reason. So like it says, end up in a gang, kind of thing. So my guess is that she wants to improve the public schools and how things are done there, and other things there that aren't the case right now. And so on the individual level, the best opportunity to get them out of that situation is to send them to a private school, right? So that wouldn't be hypocritical of her, right, to be against those. But so there, it's what she has available to her, right? It's so you can argue against certain structural things that are wrong and bad, and still say, hey, this is still the better option of the two given the current structure of the system, right? Yeah, going in the same lanes and stuff. You know, to me, it's you have your policies and you set them up on different things, and you don't look to try to appeal to, if it was me running, but what the hell do I know? I'm a college dropout. It would be something along the lines of, here's the list of the policies I support. Here's why I don't support those policies. Why, that would be how I go through it. But that's not how most people view politics and how it's going to run. That's why they have the shit shows that are the debates.
But this is the thing with these socialist hypocrites. Everything they say is actually the opposite of what they're doing. I mean, you can go to the Young Turks, the incredibly left-wing Young Turks.
The Young Turks aren't socialist. I mean, Cenk has repeatedly talked up his capitalist credentials, right? So I call him socialist hypocrisy, and it's here. But this is the one where I agree with. It's a big hypocrisy to support unions, to support all this other stuff, and to say, nope, we shouldn't have it, right? So this situation, I agree, is a real bad hypocrisy, and Cenk, get your head out of your ass, right?
Have begun unionizing. A union at the Young Turks. What an amazing thing to see. And of course they've refused voluntary recognition of the union because this is a bad thing. I mean, they're massive Bernie supporters. They're totally pro-union, except in their own workplace. And the best bit about this is Cenk explains why. Cenk's, he had apparently an incredibly tense meeting with the staff. I'm just sitting here like, Cenk, you made this rod for your own back? I have watched enough of the Young Turks over the years to see Cenk multiple times say, I am a capitalist, I do not believe in the collective ownership of property, I think that people should own their own property, and that's because he owns the Young Turks. It's his business. But during this meeting, he said that the union does not belong in a small network such as TYT. Right, okay, so now it's not the world's largest online news network.
Yeah, it's yeah, real bad. I mean, the unions belong wherever, so you can collectively bargain for your own interests and stuff, right? I think if you're not going to go worker co-ops, unions should be everywhere, right? Pro-union, all that other stuff. Protect yourselves, right? There's where I work, a lot of the old timers that are getting close to retirement haven't had a raise since before the Great Recession, right? So they're making the same as what they made 12 years ago now. 13 years ago now, yeah. Yeah, they're trying to run by his opponent, and it wasn't the case. I saw that thing going around. Yeah, that was wrong. They union supported the opposition, so they endorsed Cenk's opposition, but it's not Cenk's opposition trying to make him look bad. It's, hey, we should have a union too. We advocate for this stuff. We should live to our values.
Network. No, it's just a small network. We're just small. You don't need to worry about the profit margins. But this is
so you could still worry about the profit margins and deal with the union, right? I don't get why Sargon's equating unions with worker co-ops or owning the business, right? So there's no hypocrisy, or there's no, not hypocrisy, but there's no conflict with worrying about the profits and still dealing with the union, right? It's weird. Yeah.
completely. Honestly, he's not wrong, right? I believe that what he's saying is actually completely correct, and I believe this is being done for malicious reasons. For example, he told off one employee during the meeting and gave him the dressing down because he appeared to be.
Wait, what's being done for malicious reasons? Unionizing? No. I mean, there's a big push right now for a lot of these tech firms for unionization, right? A lot of these tech firms, so there's the California bill that went after like freelancers and stuff like that. To the big one that it affected that I saw every day was fan-sided, right? So a lot of the sports writers and stuff, they do that on side as a freelance thing. Maybe a few of them in the more popular ones can run it as a full-time job, but yeah, for the most part, it's all freelance. And so California came out with the law that, you do so much work for a company in a year, at a certain point, you're no longer a freelancer, so you got to be treated as a regular employee. No, I don't think he understands unions. I mean, I don't want to say that because he's made pro-union. I want to say he's done some pro-union stuff in the past on his channel. I have to go look. It was probably in the Conservatives Aren't Your Friend video he did probably 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. That he, when he still at least pretended to support some of his some of the left-wing ideas that he claimed that he used to be. Whether or not he really was or not, it's hard to believe, right, that you throw away your supposed principles as easily as he has in building his brand. But you got to chase that money. The last time I looked, he was making $15,000 a month.
Smiling during the meeting, he says this: the person smiling seemed to be openly mocking the idea that the company might not survive after 18 years, and we put all this blood, sweat, and tears into it. I don't find the idea of us going down funny. That's interesting, isn't it? They don't care about your company, Cenk. To them, this is a nothing. It doesn't matter about this project. If this project goes down, they'll just go and get other jobs, won't they, Cenk?
I mean, no, not necessarily, right? They're mocking what they think is a bad argument, right? Someone says, "Oh, if you guys unionize, the company's going to go down." What's going to change if you unionize, right? Other than you have to negotiate contracts for your employees with the union, right? Nothing's really going to change. So it's this weird anti-union argument that's just bugs me.
That's what they're thinking. And they are looking to hurt you. You have invited in a philosophy of envy and resentment that looks for revenge against the more successful, and now they're smiling as they unionize against you and try to wreck.
Oh boy, that's a weird way of looking at unions. That's a weird way to support workers, Carl. I mean, oh, you can't claim to say you support workers here. You know, can't claim you support them now. It's really, really dumb. That it's really, I mean, you're just a right-wing propagandist at this point. You know, and everything, you know, as much as you like to, in the past, go say, oh, everything that's not this or that is a Nazi. It's very much anything that's not right-wing enough for you, Carl, is socialist. They're all socialists.
Your company. Look at what you say here. Reality is we're in a precarious position. We're in a digital media landscape where almost no one makes money or is sustainable. I'm sure that's true on the left wing. I'm sure everyone's noticed that a lot of left-wing media companies are going under or taking massive cuts. They are having real trouble sustaining what is, I suppose, the projection of woke ideology to a public who generally don't want it.
I mean, no. I mean, he's talking about online media all over the place. And it's not all left-wing, but, I mean, online media really is a tough thing right now to make money and hold on to. But, yeah. So it's, you know, part of that is ad blockers, right? Something that I assume you're using, Carl, right now is a big reason is that they can't paywall their stuff. You know, the demonetization and stuff on YouTube, right? So they're not making the money they were there and that stuff. And it also comes to, but I mean, they get millions of dollars a year in partnerships, and they sign with all these different orgs and stuff, and make a shit ton of money that way. So I don't think they're hurting, but it's all about how these companies are run for digital media is the issue, right? So you look at for YouTube, what do they call them? Oh, why am I drawing a blank? But things like oh, what are they called? Oh, what are they called? What's the things that sign the creators? So the I'm drawing a blank. Chat. I don't know if you heard. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. He's really outperforming the polls, big time. At 63% reporting, but or networks, channel networks. That's what they are. Channel networks. You know, they do all sorts of stuff to crook the books so that they can sell them off at a certain point, and they end up with doing nothing. Steyer just dropped out. Alrighty, so that's gonna hurt Bernie going forward if Steyer's now out. Because Steyer was eating into Biden's support, but that looks like that was fading anyway. So Biden might actually make a comeback at this.
But he says for a smaller digital media company, these are absolutely real considerations. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have a union. Everyone should know the full context. Folks say they don't believe we're in a precarious position, okay, and that's their decision to make. Well, I believe that they are in a more precarious position than the union would think. But this is what the anonymous TYT staffer who gave a comment to the Daily Caller said. We generally feel disappointed but unshaken. We feel it's the right thing to do because of what TYT values. We're just getting the company to live by its principles. Well, they're going to end up destroying the company because, frankly, not all of the people in the company have the same market value. They don't produce the same value in labor. That's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah, with a union, you would still have different pay scales for different jobs, right? Those don't go away. You know, it's collectively bargained. Yeah, probably. But yeah, it's, you know, the pay scales don't go away with unions, right? You know, unless your only experience with unions is like, you know, some of the skilled labor unions and stuff like that, where they're a little more evenly distributed and stuff. But this was a union across the entire company, across a bunch of different job types and ideas. So there would be different pay scales across the board still in a union. So nothing changes.
But socialists like Vorsh can't accept that, can they? And I tell you, his debate with...
I watched this, and man, Sargon is really out his ass if he thinks Molyneux won. I don't think Vosh did the best in it, but I mean, Molyneux was really dumb. But I mean, Sargon's really dumb, so what do I know? Yeah, Carl doesn't understand unions, but we'll get on to here in this debate here, because I watched it, and he's going to twist some things that weren't the case.
Stefan Molyneux was mind-blowing and eye-opening. I would just like to say congratulations to Stefan, who won this debate hands down on all of the facts and all of the arguments. He conducted himself brilliantly in this debate. I was genuinely impressed. Honestly, just hats off to Stefan there. He really smashed it. And the way in which he smashed the debate, I'm not saying he destroyed Vorsh, although he didn't need to. Vorsh had some very, very interesting perspectives in this debate. At once, he doesn't believe in the great man of history idea. He doesn't believe that it's a small percentage of people who are creating the majority of the wealth, even though that's true. And the arch example of this is his own channel, where he openly claimed, well,
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not good. Like, and the great man thing has been, pretty thoroughly debunked in the literature and stuff, right? As an argument and stuff here, so, or at least as a unifying theory of history kind of thing. Not that there aren't, in some situations, great men that do great things, but it's just as a whole, as a defining feature of history, it's not well accepted within academia, as far as I understand it.
I do 95% of the work, and I contract a bit of editing to just editors on the internet, who then he pays like $300 for, or whatever it is, and then that's as much of the business as he wants them to have. And Stefan just asked him, well, if syndicalism or cooperatives are so useful, why don't you do them? If they're so good at producing wealth and they're so fair and just and righteous and grow and they're successful, why don't you do it with your own channel? And all he had was special pleading.
So I'll explain a little bit of this for those who didn't watch the debate. So Stefan came after him as kind of a gotcha, even though he goes, "Oh, I'm not doing a gotcha. Why don't you turn your channel into a worker co-op? Invite any other kind of little socialists on to run your channel and certain things, do all this other things." Really weird and a really kind of weird way of trying to understand worker co-ops for that and how they would apply to the channel. And he thinks it was a great way to get him to get you. But yeah, just because you support like worker co-ops doesn't mean that, if I'm running my channel by myself, right, and do the same thing like Vosh, say I get to Vosh's size, and I want to contract out a little bit of work to save me some time. Maybe, with like some of these big, long 7-8 hour streams and stuff I end up doing, have somebody, maybe go find somebody to, instead of me taking the time to cut it out, I go and find somebody else that'll cut out one of my streams, or find something and, cut it out and do a quick little editing and pay them, right? They're not my employee, right? They're not in here an employee of the business and stuff here. That's just something to take something off my hands and free some stuff there. Now, if I got to the point of, say, and I don't think I ever will, but if I got to the point of, say, ContraPoints and the type of money she brings in, right? And she's kind of got a staff around her and all this other stuff. So like the way that would work would be like Theron, who does a lot of behind the scenes work on all her videos. Theron and ContraPoints could have a worker co-op over the business, over the channel. So that's where you would have it. Now, she still contracts out other works, and even with a worker co-op, you'd still contract out other work if you can't do it in-house, right? That's not something that's bad, right? Yeah, it's contract work, right? It's not, he doesn't own a, business or anything like that. Now, if you wanted to do, say, a collective and start a YouTube channel together as a collective. What is what, chat? Oh, we're just talking about the stuff in the video and what we're reacting to. But yeah, he's so we tried to get him on that. That's like, oh, you started a channel and it wasn't a worker co-op. It's like, I'm a worker. I'm a contract worker for YouTube, right? I make content for YouTube, and I'm big enough to the point to where I get money back for making that content, right? So it doesn't mean all of a sudden it's a worker co-op. Yeah, just a libertarian. Well, we all go through a phase at some point in time. But no, if you will hold on to those beliefs, that's, I guess we can do any kind of stuff here. But yeah, no, it's so it was something like that, and he's going to try to pin this as a hypocrisy for not having a worker co-op when he's a contract worker for YouTube, right? And just because every now and then he contracts out some of the work more just to give himself a little more free time.
All he could say is, well, I don't think it'll work for me. I don't think it'll work for a company my size. I said, why not? He came out with some absolute crackers in this as well. Like the one being, the economic difference.
So, like it said, it wasn't, it's not going to work for me or work for what I do. It's like, it can. Like, you can have a worker co-op run a YouTube channel, right? Do something like, Non Sequitur show, right? Obviously, organize it better than what they had, where you don't have the legal fallout and all that stuff. But if you want to say, all right, we want to do this big debate show on the channel, we'll have a couple different shows a week, we'll run it this year, and we're a worker co-op, we all work in and own the company, right? And we have a worker co-op that way. We all make the same, we all split it amongst us. We all have a democratic vote in how the channel's run, and you can do it that way, right? Where Vosh is just a streamer that gets on and talks about shit, right? He's a single person. It's like asking Brad Pitt to be a worker co-op, the worker co-op of Brad Pitt, right? So like, what even is that? That doesn't make any sense, right? You know, the worker co-op of a single laborer, right? But for a channel, yeah, you can do a worker co-op channel and run it. Up to the company. I mean, I would incentivize companies to move towards worker co-ops, or at the very least provide strength for unions. So I'm not a socialist where everything's got to be worker co-op across the board and all that other stuff. So I'm still a capitalist. I support worker co-ops. I support unions. I think when there's a huge power imbalance in talking about negotiating wages and stuff, it's not going to work the same as what's conceived by capitalist theory. When you have a mega multinational corporation negotiating with some guy off the street looking for a job, right? So having that union, having kind of balancing that power so you can get your fair share is important. So I believe in legislation that supports and protects unions, right, and emboldens them. And I would even support incentivization programs to form worker co-ops, right? So none of it's all there. So from where it's I mean, I guess you can go call it there. I wonder what you think is free market capitalism and how you're working with that and what you think it should be. But yeah, that's a lot of things. And there's a wide range in capitalist theory for different things, and it kind of gets boiled down into this really comical thing when people talk about it.
Between South Korea and North Korea is not to do with South Korea's free market and investment, and the reasons is too complex to understand. You'll never understand, but it's definitely not that, which Molyneux just dismissed as not an argument, which is correct. It wasn't an argument. Vorsch thinks that the abolitionist movement in Britain wanted to abolish slavery so they could make money in factories, which was absolutely hilarious.
That wasn't Vosh's argument, from what I remember in the debate. Yeah, my deadpan. Yeah. I don't know. This is kind of how I am. But no, but that wasn't Vosh's argument. So the argument in the debate that brought up was a changing in thinking into supporting real laissez-faire free market thinking led to the end of slavery and stuff. And Vosh is like, no, it didn't, right? We had slavery, we made all these different advancements into doing all that stuff. So that was Vosh's argument, was that that wasn't the case. And he's turned it into that, oh, well, they only ended slavery because they wanted to make money in the factories and stuff. And really weird thing that doesn't fit with what was said, right? But he doesn't go into, I don't think he goes any further into it.
The abolitionist movement was generally made up of lawyers and activists, not factory owners. Why factories couldn't coexist with slavery, I don't know. Factories produced textile.
He said factories coexisted with slavery. He said, so Stefan's biggest thing is that, oh, well, economic innovation, the Industrial Revolution didn't come until we all got free market and got the boots off our necks and all this other stuff. And I like some of Friedman's policies, right? I'm a negative income tax supporter, right? So I'm familiar with Friedman's work. I don't agree with all of it, right? But no, so yeah, there's some stuff I like about Friedman and his stuff. So I mean, I can watch it. We can put it in the queue next if you got something he thinks is good here. But I mean, I don't know what I'm going to be able to respond to live as we're going along. That's going to make a whole lot of sense. I don't, for talking a lot about like the academic stuff and all that other things, I'd need to read a little bit more just to understand some of the things he's coming from. But yeah, I'm not a socialist, I'm a capitalist. But and I can be that stuff too, right? Like worker co-ops were something proposed by Adam Smith and supported by David Ricardo, two of the very early classical economists, fathers of classical economics. So I can support that stuff as a capitalist.
Goods that are made from the raw materials that are farmed in the fields. If anything, you would think they would want to combine the two to be ultra profitable. Like there's no competition between the two. It's the chain of production, in fact, that would be put into place. But even then, let's assume that like there was nothing to do with the economic incentive of the thing. Let's assume that the abolitionists didn't have moral arguments, which they did, because Vorsch doesn't understand the English concept of self-ownership as an amount.
So all he said there was Vosh's argument. Like what he doesn't think Vosh's argument is here. So either he's as stupid. Well, it can be either or, but he is as stupid as we think he is, right? But he's also a lying propagandist in how he's portraying this debate. Oh, the free lunch myth. Alrighty. Well, look at it here after. I got a couple other videos. I got one more video after this I got to respond to. And then we'll look at that Milton Friedman video.
Man being his own property, which is the foundation of the moral impetus away from slavery. It's why the English found slavery so abhorrent. They spent 100 years, and God knows how much of their own blood and treasure, stamping the trade out. And Vorsch, it cost us so much money that we only just finished paying back the debts from ending the slave trade in 2014. I, a descendant of slaves, have paid in to the ending of the slave trade.
Oh boy, so Sargon's going back to holding up that he's of African descent, which is highly, highly questionable. I forget where he said his granddad was from, but if he wasn't from, I don't remember if it was Northern Africa. If it's Northern Africa, he's probably never black to begin with. If it was Sub-Saharan, maybe. But even then it's questionable if he's got black ancestry or African ancestry. Yep. So that was a knockout blow for Biden.
Trade. He doesn't know about the petitions across England.
Well, because he can use it to browbeat people, right? So that's why he used it back in the day, was to go after SJWs. Was to say, well, my granddad was black, and all this other stuff, which, oh boy, that is, yeah, he got one really good, so we'll see how big the bounce is going into Super Tuesday. How's it doing, Everyday Progressive? But, yeah, he uses it to beat people over the head so he can claim all the other stuff here, which comes into a weird discussion about race and race as a social construct and everything else we could go into. I don't have any of that stuff prepared to make that kind of streamer argument, or that argument, coherent enough for to make sense on this particular stream. But maybe Tuesday when we do the big 10-12 hour stream, whatever we're going to do as we cover Super Tuesday, maybe I can put something together for there and talk a little bit about it.
And he doesn't know about the hassle it caused and the amount of money that was lost. It doesn't matter. He thinks it's he just lives in a fantasy world that is
Thanks for the follow, Marky.
completely backwards. And this applies to his advocacy of co-ops, because he just says, well, I don't think it would work for my channel. I do 95% of the work. And then he ends with, co-ops are great and I really think they're competitive, blah, 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 blah. He reiterates his pro-co-op narrative, even though he himself has destroyed it, and then he just ejects from the conversation.
I mean, it's not. So like I said before, the hypocrisy he's trying to claim here is not there, right? It's like saying, why isn't Brad Pitt a co-op? The business of Brad Pitt, right? So, and you can have a co-op YouTube channel, but that's not the channel Vosh runs. Vosh is Vosh, getting on stream and talking to people, right, about stuff. So you can do that with a big co-op thing. Other ways, we have other ones. So thanks for the follow, Everyday Progressive. But yeah, so it's not a hypocrisy on there on Vosh's part to not be a co-op for him, the co-op of Vosh, and then to advocate for co-ops where there's multiple employees under a boss and all that other stuff. Yeah, it's really weird kind of thing, gotcha thing that he wants to hold on to. Yeah. Well, I mean, he contracts out a little bit of work here and there for editing, so it's not a big thing.
It's just hilarious. I guess he's not one of the 9 out of 10 people who are willing to earn less money to do more meaningful work. Because I would have thought that Vosh, the arch advocate for worker co-ops, would find it very meaningful to work at a worker co-op. You think that he would have created a worker co-op from nothing before doing anything with his channel. You'd have thought it would have been a worker co-op from the word go. But apparently it's worker co-ops for thee and not for me. Anyway, got a live event on Friday with...
Yeah, not going to let him shill that garbage, but yeah, really dumb. Yeah, it's really bad argument. So we got one more, and then we'll go look up. So I'll pull that up. Free lunch myth. We'll watch that after we got a Steven Crowder video.